what should I do next? Is that the question that keeps circling in your head? Maybe you've even said out loud, I'm just not sure what to do. And the truth is, even though you've checked all the boxes and look successful on paper, you still feel, well, stuck. Maybe you've sold a company. Maybe you've made partner. Maybe you've landed the role you worked toward for years. Maybe you're already financially stable and maybe even financially free. But instead of peace, you feel restless. The question isn't just about a job title or the next promotion, it's bigger. You're asking, am I wasting my potential? Am I maximizing this season of my life? Will I regret it if I just coast? And if you're in that place, you're not alone. Many of the most accomplished leaders I work with hit this exact moment. They've built, achieved, delivered. And then suddenly, the external markers of success stop being enough, and the internal questions start to get louder. Let's name the fog for what it is. On the outside, you look accomplished. To your colleagues, you've made it. But on the inside, you're restless. It's not that you don't have options. In fact, you probably have too many. It's that none of them feels obvious or certain or entirely right. Some of you have money in the bank. Others are stable but not completely financially free, still thinking about living expenses, still wanting to grow the cushion. Either way, money may no longer be the main driver. The questions now are about impact, meaning, legacy, and how you spend your time. You don't just want to keep doing what you've always done. But you also don't want to throw away everything you've built. You want this next chapter to matter. And layered on top of that is the reality of this moment in history. The economy is uncertain. Industries are shifting overnight. Technology, AI, digital disruption, these are rewriting the rules. Geopolitics ripple into markets. Choices feel heavy, even irreversible. It's no wonder you feel stuck. This isn't about chasing another rung on the ladder. It's about clarity, contribution, and purpose. So here's the mistake high achievers make when they feel stuck. They start with options instead of intention. When you feel restless, the first instinct is to make a list of options. Should I join a board? Should I start a nonprofit? Should I take on a new venture? Should I stay and coast for a few more years? But options without clarity are just noise. The real first step is to ask yourself what you're actually solving for. What do I want most in this next chapter? That's the question to ask yourself. Is it impact, freedom, creativity, meaning, security? Here's the radical shift. Stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what should I do next if what I want most is, and then fill in that blank. That one reframing changes everything. It pulls the focus from external shoulds to internal alignment. Arthur Brooks is a Harvard professor, social scientist, and best-selling author who has become one of today's leading voices on happiness, leadership, and purpose. His work centers on how high achievers can build lives of deeper meaning and fulfillment. In his book, From Strength to Strength, Brooks draws on psychology, neuroscience, and case studies of leaders to show that the ones who thrive in later chapters aren't those who simply keep climbing the same ladder. Instead, they are the ones who pivot, shifting their energy from achievement to service, from accumulation to contribution, and from chasing relevance to creating impact. Clarity starts with naming what really matters now. So before you brainstorm possibilities, ground yourself. Otherwise, you may chase shiny distractions. And then once you've clarified what truly matters in this next chapter, the natural question becomes, how do you actually move from intention to figuring out what your options are? That's where many leaders and many who come to me for executive coaching are stuck. They look at their history and see limitations, or they look at their future and see only a blank page. And while having a lot of choices can seem like an enviable position to be in, it can actually be quite an overwhelming place. In reality, clarity starts to emerge when you begin to reframe what you have and what's available to you. And that brings us to the second step, possibility. It's about learning to see your constraints and your resources differently. Because most leaders misread their own constraints. They see them as walls instead of edges. You may have told yourself, well, I've only worked in finance my whole career. Or I've been in one industry forever. Or you may have told yourself, well, I don't have any startup experience. And at first glance, I see how those may sound like limitations. But in reality, what you might see as constraints are often your unique leverage. So, I've only worked in finance. Well, that makes you a natural fit for audit and risk roles on boards. I've only been in one industry forever. That gives you pattern recognition and credibility no outsider can match. I don't have startup experience. That makes you the steadying force every founder needs. Herminia Ibata, a London Business School professor and author of Working Identity, studied how successful professionals reinvent their careers. Her research shows that reinvention almost never comes from sitting down, making a grand plan, and then executing it in one big leap. Instead, it happens through small, strategic experiments, trying out new roles, projects, or networks that gradually reshape both how you see yourself and how others see you. Along the way, what once looked like hard barriers often become clues. So, for example, that lack of startup experience, you may see it as a limitation, but in practice, it signals where you could add unique value with a wealth of industry knowledge and a strong presence for founders. In Ibata's view, constraints aren't dead ends. They're indicators of where your next opportunities may lie, if you're willing to treat them as data points rather than roadblocks. And then beyond this, we are all so much more powerful, talented, and multifaceted than we give ourselves credit for. And yes, I get it. If you've climbed the ladder and become known for a specific skill or functional area, I understand that you feel like the die has been cast and this is your lot. And double yes, if you're a CFO, CMO, CSO, or another senior leader, it can feel like you're trapped in a rigid box with really defined edges. But the reality is that your role has required far more than that narrow definition. Leading through crises, navigating board dynamics, building teams, influencing stakeholders, seeing patterns others miss. These are transferable, high-level skills that cut across industries and sectors. So I would challenge you to be generous with yourself and see the full breadth of what you bring to the table, because it's not just the title on your business card or your LinkedIn profile. That broader perspective often reveals opportunities you couldn't see when you were focused only on the confines of your current role. Reinvention from this place doesn't mean throwing away everything you've built, it simply means repackaging it. Start by asking, what are the through lines in my career that I actually enjoy the most? Maybe it's developing people, steering organizations through complexity, or spotting untapped opportunities. Once you've identified those threads, look for ways to apply them in new arenas, whether that's joining a board, advising early stage companies, shifting into nonprofit leadership, or designing a portfolio of projects that blend profit with purpose. The key is to stop seeing reinvention as abandoning your past and start seeing it as leveraging your existing capital, intellectual, relational, and reputational, in ways that fit this new season. Reinvention isn't about making one massive all or nothing leap. It's about testing the edges of those broader skills in new environments. Once you start to see yourself beyond the narrow confines of a title, the question becomes, how do you figure out where those strengths will actually come alive next? The truth is, clarity comes from both strategy and action. And that's where the idea of micro-pilots comes in. You don't need to gamble your whole career on one big single bet. You just need to design small strategic experiments that give you real-world data about what energizes you, what drains you, and what's worth building into your future. A micropilot could be joining one nonprofit committee, advising one startup once a month. Perhaps you could shadow a board member for a season. Or try writing one thought leadership piece and see how it feels to put your voice out. These aren't random activities, they're structured experiments. And then after each, ask yourself, did this energize me? Did this drain me? Do I want to go deeper into this, or was that enough? This is the design thinking mindset that Stanford's D School teaches. Prototype, test, iterate. Don't bet the farm. Run experiments, gather feedback, and then refine. Because here's the deeper truth. Micropilots not only give you clarity, they ultimately reduce risk. You don't have to walk away from your career or risk all of your savings to explore a new path. You just need to carve out a controlled space for testing. What's more, micropilots help to confront and destroy indecision. So instead of circling in your head for months or years, you're actually collecting data in a matter of weeks. And every small experiment chips away at that fog. Look, you're smart, you're resourceful, you've built companies, portfolios, careers. But when you're in the fog yourself, you can't see your way through. And that's where support helps you break through. A coach, a mentor, a trusted advisor, they shorten the loop of indecision. So what might take you 2 years to process alone can take 2 months with the right guide. Seth Godin calls this radical empathy, having someone in your corner who doesn't just give you answers, but helps you to uncover your own. And I've heard people think that having support is somehow indulgent. It's not. It's strategy. It's the fastest way to go further, faster. Because the cost of staying stuck is always higher than the cost of moving forward with clarity. But clarity isn't just about making a decision for today. It's about shaping the story you will tell tomorrow. Every choice you make at this stage isn't only about career trajectory or financial return. It's about alignment with who you are, what you value, and the imprint you want to leave behind. And that's why the conversation naturally widens from clarity into legacy. Once the fog begins to lift and you've tested your way into momentum, the question is no longer simply, what should I do next? The deeper, more enduring question becomes, what should all of this add up to? And what will my work and my life stand for? Which brings us to the final step, legacy and impact. It's not just about money. It's not just about prestige. It's the mark you leave on people, on industries, on communities, on the world. So that might mean deciding to serve on boards that shape industries or lead a nonprofit that you believe in. It could mean mentoring the next generation or starting a new venture that builds more than profit. It could also mean designing a portfolio life, a mix of projects, investments, and contributions that add up to impact. Because here's the truth. Legacy doesn't happen by accident. You don't just drift into it. You design it with intention. Arthur Brooks argues that one of the most dangerous traps for leaders is chasing relevance instead of contribution. The leaders who thrive are the ones who shift toward meaning, not just keeping their seat at the table, but using it to shape what matters. And here's something I see all the time. High achievers fear regret more than failure. They don't want to look back and wonder what they could have done if they had been bolder, clearer, or more intentional. That fear of regret can either paralyze you or it can propel you. Legacy is built not in one sweeping reinvention, but in a series of intentional choices. Every small act of clarity compounds. Every decision to mentor, to contribute, to align with what's important to you adds up to a life that means something. And that's where this conversation lands, not in theory, not in endless possibilities, but in the practical moves you can make now to start creating momentum. Because legacy isn't built in the abstract. It's built in the choices you make this week, this month, this season. So let's bring it down to brass tacks. Here are 3 moves to shift from stuck to intentional. 1, get brutally honest about what matters. Before you chase any option, take the time to name what actually matters to you in this season, not what looks impressive, not what others expect, but what you truly want. Is it impact, flexibility, challenge, contribution? Until you own that, every option will look equally appealing and equally paralyzing. 2, narrow the field. Instead of trying to explore 50 directions, force yourself to choose 3 that genuinely fit your priorities. And then test them against clear filters. Which of these align with my values? Which fit the life I want now? Which have the right level of challenge? Eliminating options is often the real unlock. And then 3, run a pilot. Don't wait for certainty. Test one of 3 directions in the next 30 days. Yes, 30 days through a project, a conversation, or a limited commitment. Treat it as reconnaissance, not a lifetime decision. This isn't about landing on the one perfect next step. It's about making thoughtful choices with clarity and intention and creating forward motion. The fog won't lift all at once, but it does lift when you start taking real steps, however small they may be. If you'd like a framework to help you do that, I put together a free on-demand masterclass called Get Unstuck and Move Forward with Confidence. It's for people like you who are tired of circling the same questions and are ready to start making progress on what's next. You can find the link in the description.